how privileged we are today to have Professor Ziv with us because he has taken special permission from his authorities to be in India with us. And Professor Ziv has been a psychotherapist for no less than 40 years, of which 30 years he has been into Gestalt. And apart from that, he has also been consulting HR and other professionals on burnout prevention and stress management. He consults with organizations on change management. He is an author, and we are going to talk about that in a minute. He teaches at a university, and why it is of particular importance to us here is that he has found a way of using the Gestalt methods in coaching. He takes those trainings, and we are privileged that he is going to share some of that knowledge with us today, right now. And he also has a few copies of his book, Effective Group Facilitation, for those of you who want an autographed copy later on. So with this quick introduction, I will hand it to you, Professor.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much. With this amount of people, I think we need to move to Yankee Stadium in New York. So I do apologize for all the people that have to stand up. This is quite an inconvenient position to be. So if you're really courageous, find a lap of someone who sits and... Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me. It is right that I had to get a special permission. As you know, Israel is in war right now, and the fact that I'm too old to become a soldier, so I've been doing it to the age of 50, but with my expertise with trauma and with group work, we work now a lot with soldiers and family of soldiers, and 150,000 people are evacuated from their homes. So you can imagine there is a lot of work, and first they didn't let me come, so I had to present a special pamphlet saying that I do represent America and Israel. So Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu are now. So I got a permission for 1 week, and then I have to go back to the army. So here I am. Thank you so much. Yeah, I believe this topic captures a lot of interest because it is not well known in the coaching business about using Gestalt method. Some of you don't even recognize the name. It sounds German, but it is German, but it's not recognized. So what I'll do in this few 45 minutes is try to show you, this is a term that I coined, coaching the Gestalt way. Being a clinical psychologist for so many years, as Jeffrey said, we're in the same career. I still am a clinical psychologist. I am in charge of the group track at the university, both Hebrew University and Yeshiva University. So that's why we need now as coaches to work a lot with groups, especially those coaches who work with HR business and team building and managing conflicts. One-on-one is okay, but we need understanding how to lead a group, how to lead a conference, how to lead a workshop. And that's a profession. That's not a hobby. That's a real profession. If you download my book or if you buy the copy, you will see how serious this profession is. Because if you don't know how to run a workshop and you have resentment in the group and you have also somebody that, severe ADHD, that's enough for you to be challenged how to run a group. But that's not the topic of our conversation right now. So I would like to start this session with two stories. And the stories will lead you to understand exactly why it is so important to incorporate awareness of Gestalt into the coaching profession. And I believe this will end the debate that has been for years between psychologists and coaches. There is a debate all the time that coaches here in India are credited by the ICF, but in elsewhere in the world, you need to be considered a professional, either a psychotherapist, a professional social worker, psychology. Coaching is, what is this? Here it's the opposite. And there is always a debate. And I think it's about time to end this conflict. And about time to realize that coaches, if they're really, as Jeffrey said, study, practice, they can take a therapeutic role as well without being called psychologist. Alfred Adler, who is one of the pioneers, also did the same thing a long time ago when he announced that in order to do parenting workshops, you don't have to be a psychiatrist and you don't have to be a psychologist. You know, you can do parenting education if you're trained in an Adlerian way. And I have the feeling it's the same about coaching. As you do know, coaching business was created out of great disappointment from psychologists. And why? And why? Because the old psychology was about a psychologist sitting in his room or her room, and whatever the client says, this is a very expensive, very expensive, doesn't say a thing, and then they say at the end of the time is up, but I just talked about my father. Okay, next time. So after doing so many sessions, and then he said, okay, but no change has occurred. So I came to this session to meet this psychologist to see manifestation of behavior because I'm frustrated, because my work relationship don't work, relationship with my daughter, my son don't work, and I don't see any change. So why do I pay you so much money? And then, this void created a new profession, which really now becomes very serious, as Jeffrey said, and I just really accept and agree with all what he said. It is scientific evidence-based. And we do teach coaching at the university right now, which I could never anticipated about 5 or 10 years ago, which is great. Now, why Gestalt? So you will see a lot of parallels between therapy and coaching. When you got your ICF credentials and when you learned a lot, you learned about a lot of the basis of psychotherapy, meaning active listening, empathy, and going in continuity, a lot of parallels. However, coaching in the beginning was result-oriented profession. We want to see change. So I will start with a story, real story of clients of mine. I have a very famous American businessman. Everybody will recognize the name. That's why I cannot tell his name. Yeah? And he came to me for consulting. And I said, why do you come for me for consulting? You're so successful. Everybody knows you. European TV. I said, because you're the only one I can share that before every director's meeting at the company, I shiver. I am so much afraid. I am in a point that the night before I don't sleep. And the night before I have nightmares of what might happen. And I look at him and I said, you are one of the most successful people in this States, in America. Yes, that's why I come to you, because you are the only one I can say here with confidentiality. And I said, do you have any idea what is happening with you? He says, I don't know. That's the reason I come for you. I don't know what's going on. I have all the credentials. I finished my MBA with excellence, cum laude. I'm very, very wealthy, thank God. I am successful. And yet this is happening to me every time I need to go to this director meetings and we have to make decisions. So if you ask this person about logic, about rational, Say, I don't know. If you learn something about group, if not, buy the book. Yeah, about Johari window. You all know about Johari window, right? There's Joseph Luther, Harry Ingham that created this 4 metrics, and there is the window of I know and you know, I know and you don't know. You know that I don't know, and that the 4th one. I don't know and you don't know. And this is really something that when you ask this person, what's going on with you? And he said, I don't know. I'm trying to convince myself that everything will be okay. And yet the night before I don't sleep. I have nightmares. Just imagine me waking up with all those thoughts that I have. And I will cut the story short and say to you that when we started working in Gestalt method, which in the end of this presentation you will understand perfectly what it means, yeah? And I bring him back to his childhood memory. And we go back to his childhood memory, and I asked him, could you recall an event in your life, very early in your life, that you felt awkward and not worthy? And suddenly, you could feel this. At that time, he was 45. Yeah, much older than him. We all get older. You stay younger, but we all get younger. He started crying. And I noticed something is happening with him. Something is happening with him. I said, okay, stay. Look what happens with you. And then he had this memory, flashbacks. When he was 4 years old, that was the time, probably you can recall, that was the time there was Playmobil, Lego, all those, games that parents bought to their children. That was the time for the Lego. He was 4 years old, and his father decided to buy him a new Lego. So he went, very happy, and played in his room and built with the Lego a tower. Now, the only thing this 4 years old could not take into account, that his father is an engineer. So when he very enthusiastically came to his father's room and said, Daddy, look, what did I do with this new Lego you bought me? I built a tower. His father looks at him and says, this not is a right way to build a tower. I will show you how you build a tower. And from that moment, was embedded in his vessels. This memory was so brutal for him that he made a decision subconsciously, whatever I'll do, I'll never get credited by my dad. And that was so crucial. It was so important that whatever he did, it was like a trademark, negative trademark. And he completed his MBA with excellence. Not only top A, the dean. But yet, this negative trademark, this is not how you build the tower, stayed for him. And, the only way we did and I'll explain to that through we go, it was to do a corrective experience, which we do in Gestalt therapy and in a group setting. But that a realization, he said to me, I know it is irrational. All reality shows me the opposite. And you can all relate to this because you have clients that the outer reality does not represent the inner reality. The outer camera does not represent the inner camera. They have the inner camera of not worthy enough, not eligible enough, not good enough, which the outer camera shows beautiful, excellent marks, and I see that along among with businessmen. When I work with businessmen, you probably see these people. Some people have enough money in their bank. They have enough money to to live in luxury, but they live the life like they're going to be evacuated from their home this minute, homeless. And they become so rigid about money spending, what they can afford. Look about, when parents or in-laws, that you can say to them as a daughter or sons, hey, Dad, you can live really nice. This is the time after, being retired, you can enjoy life. And yet, he will not change the car for 30 years. He will not change the home for 30 years. He will keep the budget like this. And you say, reality, outer reality? No need to. The other way around, it's problematic. The people don't have enough money, but they live like they won the lottery. That is problematic. Yeah? So, what happened with this man, that he really couldn't come to any director meeting without having those symptoms. What we did with him is what we call corrective experience. The other story that I have for you, and then we'll go to some theory. It is relevant right now, before the war started. I'm talking about before, because everything changed. I was called to become a mediator between two business associates. And they are in real estate. They live in Belgium, and they're very good friends. They don't want to break up this, partnership. They don't want to. However, they get into fights all the time, because one of them is an ADD. One of them is an ADD. Suppose I saw ADHD. He's a risk taker. Say, let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. And his partner always hold and say, no, I'm not going to take risk. I'm not going to take risk. They came to me, this ADD person, said, I can't go along with him. I mean, he just shut up all my dreams. I mean, I see opportunities. I see investment opportunities. And every time I ask him, he says, no, we need to keep the money. We need to guard the money. This come to a time that I said, this is either we continue, either we break up. So they come to me, if you work rationally, so you say, well, if the gap between your two personality trait is so big, maybe you cannot continue going together. Maybe it is time for breaking up, because one of you feels that every time he is push back, and the other feels that this is the way to go, to be cautious. However, being a Gestalt therapist and a life coach, I said something else. I said, wait, let me work with this reserved person. Let me work and see what is the obstacle that prevents you from taking risks and go along with your partner. And again, we brought him back in his memory to childhood events. And then he recalled that when he was 5 years old, just imagine that, all of you, while I'm telling you the story, be in that position. You are 5 years old, and his father was once very wealthy, and because of wrong decision making, he went into bankruptcy. Now this 5 years old boy, that when we are 5 years old, our parents are God and semi-gods. We admire them. Suddenly, 6 o'clock in the morning, knock on the door, very harsh. And his father opens the door, and the police is there. The police is there. There was time that the police people could take people into custody because of, deaths and being investigated. This 5 years old boy who, stands there and sees father like this with this policeman drag him out of the house. And that was traumatic. He made a decision that will never happen to me. That will never, it was subconscious. It will never happen to me. I will never be in the position that I will run from being wealthy to bankruptcy. So the solution is, don't take risks. See what you can. When we realized, could you tell him just to understand that this is not something you were born with. It's not a trait. There's a childhood trauma that you suffer from, what we call today PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome disorder. And this PTSD was never addressed. That PTSD was never addressed, so that inside, subconsciously, he has this trauma inside of him that he was never aware of it. Only when we do, like, sometimes maybe you did life, past life regression workshops with, Brian Weiss, that I happen to work with him quite a while. So when I got him back, then suddenly he became aware. Oh, this is what it is. And again, we did some work in Gestalt approach that really helped to do something very healthy for him. So when you realize these stories, I'm letting you know that in any client of yours, we carry in the present our childhood. We carry in any given moment all our history. It goes with us. And there is no way to separate between how we behave in the present from all we accumulated in the past. It is part of who we are. It shaped us. It really shaped us in a way that subconsciously we behave in a certain way that is manifested in the present. So, let's see what it is among us. Let's see some of the principles of Gestalt methods. Gestalt method is a German word. A German word means the whole. The whole. For example, every architect, every interior designer has to have a good Gestalt perception. The interior designer, before you know it, she or he knows exactly how it should be done. This is a Gestalt perception. That you see this completed before you even started. If you are a CEO, you need to have a good Gestalt approach to see the whole perception of the organization. If you're an accountant, probably it will be difficult for you. That's why an accountant it's not good for them to become CEOs, because they look inside like this. With their eyes on numbers, they don't look broadly. It's a Gestalt perception. So what is the idea? Is the here and now. Everything is about the present, because the present represents the past. And that's the big difference between Fritz Perls, who founded Gestalt therapy, and Freud. Freud, you'll have a quick lesson in psychology today. Freud said that in order to solve problems in the present, you have to go back to the time you were 6 months old and then talk about that. If you ever come to London and you come to Freud Museum, you see this bed that Freud put, because he was not a psychologist. Freud wasn't a neurologist. He was a doctor, physician. So he put people like in a bed and asked him to free associate. And by interpretation, he really said this will solve the past traumas that present in the present. Fritz Perls, who was trained psychoanalytically, because that was the only train this time in the 50s of the 20th century, said something which I found a genius for his time. He said, I don't have to go back, because whatever was there is manifested in the present. So whatever I see both presence and the past. So all I need is to pay attention to what I see. To pay attention to what I see, and I see all the childhood traumas manifested in the present. So that's why here and now is crucial, because just think for a moment. The only time we can really experience is the present. Tomorrow, my presentation is not to be an experience. It will be a memory of an experience. Right? And whatever happened yesterday, it's a memory of experience. And what happened ever tomorrow, it's a speculation about the experience. The only time experience can exist is in the present time. Right now, you can decide, oh, I like this presenter. Oh, I don't like him. He's boring. This is the only time you can make a decision and get up and leave. But if you stay and tomorrow you will regret it, tough luck, too bad. You did it. You did it. That's it. Yeah? So you can change something in the past, but you can change everything in the present. This is the mantra of Gestalt. The whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. You see, we have some, but 99 plus 1 is not 100. 100 is completely different. A cake is not the sum of eggs and, oven, whatever. It's something else. You get something else out of it. The human mind has tendency to complete Gestalt. We'll go about that later on. So, this is something that is the combination between therapist and coach. You don't have to photo it. You will be given the presentation. Okay? You don't have to take a photo. Just be listening. It will focus you, and it will get your attention. The presentation will be yours. Okay? So, people come with us with despair, agony, frustration, depression, and sense of helplessness. It could be, one-to-one session. It could be group session. With a big hope that with us, the magic will happen. And then we'll have to explain to them, hey, we're therapists, we're coaches, but we're not magicians. But that's the fantasy people have. Okay, let's come 1, 2, 3 sessions, and my life is completely healed. And that's it. They don't realize it's a process. They hope that the magic will happen. Their life will be transformed from darkness to light. You recognize that among your clients? Yeah. That's their subconsciously or consciously their approach. And then they can get really disappointed if this magic doesn't happen. If this change does not occur, then of course they will not say, well, it is about me. They will say, it's about you. Where did you study to become a coach? Are you sure you're really a certified coach? And then they will change coaches. I guess I need to find another one. And then they do the same thing, projecting. All systems of psychotherapy aim to achieve the same goal. This is it. Well, I know my presentation. Reduction negative symptoms and increasing of positive symptoms of behavior, thoughts, and emotions. All systems of psychotherapy aim to know what's the best way to achieve the goal, right? All systems of psychotherapy, whatever you've learned, whether it's CBT, whether it's EMDR, whether it's EFT, whether it's psychodynamic, whatever, yeah? But we have the same goal. People come to us with a story of negative feelings and negative thoughts, and they want things to change for them. Each person is different, and therefore different approaches and techniques work for different people. For some people, Gestalt will not work. For some people, CBT will not work. For some people, coach will not work. Because you need to be mature enough to come to the coaching session and listen to your coach and do whatever the coach presents to you, because we believe as coaches that the person is the master of his own life. We don't tell people do that and don't do that. But we believe that the first assumption is that the person is mature enough to make his own decisions, right? All of the system of psychotherapy are based on a basic philosophical assumption about human innate nature and behavior. This is true about all of us. So what are the sources of Gestalt therapy? And this is for, as I said, in the end of the session, you will know it by heart. Exam will be done after the session, and you will get a top A. So, there are a couple of ingredients to this Gestalt cake. Traditional psychoanalysis, and of course it comes from Fritz Perls' history, that was trained in psychoanalytic way. Intersubjective psychodynamics, we call that object relations theory. If you learn about Michael Ballant or you're in all kind of Tom Ogden and Kernberg, all kind of the followers of psychodynamic. Gestalt psychology. Gestalt psychology came with a very dear person of mine. I was fortunate not to study with Fritz Perls himself because he died in 1973, but I was fortunate enough to study with his wife, Laura Perls. Laura Perls was a cognitive Gestalt psychologist. So she brought into his life the idea of Gestalt psychology, and he incorporated the idea of Gestalt psychology into the Gestalt therapy. We'll go into Gestalt psychology in a moment so you understand exactly what I'm saying. Phenomenology, existentialism, bioenergy, Reich, if you heard about the armor of Reich, Zen Buddhism, field theory, psychodrama. There is always a debate who stole from whom. For example, just to let you know, empty chair technique is not Gestalt. Empty chair technique is psychodrama. Now, both stole from each other. Jacob Marino, he took some of the Gestalt. By the way, same thing about NLP. Same thing about NLP. Richard Bandler, and took a lot when we had in NLP parts talk. Parts talk is Gestalt. Taking from Gestalt. But he is courageous enough to give credit. A lot of other people don't give credit. But he gives credit. Psychodrama Marino and holism. So let's dive into this a little bit. Gestalt, if somebody asks you, let's say you get out of this room and there's a visitor from the moon. And he asks you, what did you do the last 45 minutes? So we'll learn about Gestalt. What's Gestalt? A whole framed entity. The whole is bigger than the sum of its part. Every part has its own identity. Let's go back to psychoanalysis because that's just the two stories I talked to you. They come from there. Childhood events do have influence on our adult life. Pathological behavior is related to the subconscious and can be surfaced in the conscious level. And if it is not, that contaminate our present living. So bear in mind the word contamination. This is what we will call in Gestalt later on unfinished business. Humans have natural needs. Humans have an innate tendency for homeostasis. Bioenergy by Wilhelm Reich. Human problems are manifested not only on the cognitive emotional level, but firstly on the physical level. It is embedded in our body. And that's why we are called body psychotherapy. We work a lot with body gesture. We work a lot with nonverbal communication. We work a lot with body language. As you all know, if you studied NLP, this is 93% of our communication style, right? The body creates an armor for protection and becomes self-prison. Like you can see people when I work a lot with all kind of problems, you see the body represents it. It is vitally important to allow the body to free and disarm himself. That's what we do. Gestalt psychology, this is crucial. Our perception is built by the nature to understand reality through structures. There are structures as a whole, images, experiences, frames. Zeigarnik effect, that's another thing that will be an exam. Zeigarnik effect. When we meet just parts of the whole, we need to complete the gap by adding features in order to create the framed whole. That's how stereotypes are being built. That's how prejudice is being built. That's how jokes are created. This is when we have data, but not enough data, we become LFTs, low frustration tolerance. We need to complete the data. So either we search all the time, become Google addict, Yeah? Either we create them in our mind. Create them in our mind. We create, of course. And this is how we solve contradictions. For example, if I know someone who is very snobbish, like we turn our nose, and suddenly I hear that this person volunteered in the Red Cross. That is a contradicting, right? What do I do with contradicting data? Because I think in gestalts and I need to complete the gestalt, I say to myself, he doesn't just volunteer. Something he gets out of it. This person will not do voluntarily anything. There is a benefit. So that's how I solved the dilemma that I have, right? We create these gestalts all the time. That's why I'm a couple therapist for 4 years. That's how I make my living. Come home, of course, I know you. You like your mom. And what do you think? You like your dad, huh? We create those stereotypes all the time. How I'm not surprised that that's what you did. It runs in your family. Especially the truth, don't say that. It's among our in-laws. This is really there. Of course, you and mom and dad, the same thing. I know. They live in our house. It's not like America. You send them to an elderly home. Here, they are with you all day long, so you cannot deny, right? So the Zeigarnik effect works all the time. We create gestalts. Existentialism, humans are connected to each other, but they are separate from each other and they have their own identity. Phenomenology, the perception is only what is happening in the here and now. This is the ultimate truth. This is the experience. Zen Buddhism, I don't have to tell you, awareness is the path of self-wisdom and relates to the importance of the here and now experiences. And holism means everything is connected to everything and everything has an impact on everything. By the way, it's like if you have heard about Vilma Bion in psychoanalysis, said everything that is in the room has an impact on the room. All right? And psychodrama, of course, we play the parts, the psyche, we don't talk about it. So this is the gestalt of the gestalt. This is the gestalt of gestalt therapy that was created. All right? So as coaches, we can go about values. Values. The values in gestalt therapy means live in the here and now, accept yourself as you are, look at your environment and deal with it as it is not you would have to like it to be. Be honest. Authenticity is a very important value. Be honest with yourselves. Express yourself through words like I want, I think, I feel, directly instead of manipulating yourself to another. Experience the whole rainbow of feelings. That means in Gestalt therapy, there is no negative or positive emotions. This is so crucial to understand. Anger has the same energy like joy. It's an energy entity. It's only the culture that decided this is negative, this is positive. And as a result of culture, a lot of what considered to be negative were suppressed. And they're suppressed because society does not accept what we call negative emotions. And what happens is it's suppressed. Poof, there is a trigger, pow, explosion. Explosion. Whenever we see violence, domestic violence or violence outside, you see the whole garbage pile was packed out with negative emotions that were not expressed in a permitted way, and then it created temper tantrums, it created all kind of emotional damages. So this is a permission to experience the whole rainbow of feelings and the pleasant ones and unpleasant ones. No judgment. For me, this is so crucial because if you work with a client and the client, let's say, bitches about his boss, which is not polite, but is valid. Because underneath this bitching amount, there is pain, there is anger, then that's to be surfaced. See what's going on inside of you. And probably when you learn group dynamics, you will see that the boss becomes the object of projection from previous childhood events, probably against parents. That if this is not complete, it's projected on the boss. So if you are in a managing role right now, be aware that you're going to be object of projection. If you're a group leader, be aware that you're always going to have a competitor. You're always going to have a person in the group who would like to lead with you, sometime instead of you. And they will always bitch about how you don't know how to run the workshop. And he knows or she knows better than you. If you cannot accept that and you take it personally, quit. But one needs to learn that you become an object of projection, and this is very important. I have a very important chapter in the book about this, how we become object of projection. Be ready to try out new experiences and new situations. We offer to try experiments. We offer to try new ways of dealing with things. We are very directive psychotherapy. We are directive. We offer experiments. So let's try it out. Are you willing to try it out? If we had more time, I would do a whole experiment with all of you right now. But let's see if we have time. If I can extend the time. Don't accept external demands that contradict your identity and sense of self. This is so important. And I give myself permission to become prejudiced among Indian culture. After I've been here for 16 years and twice in a row. I found a lot, especially in companies and corporates, that Indian people are so sensitive at what would other people think of them. So sensitive. To the point that they sometimes become submissive, people-pleasing, or aggressive. They don't learn how to execute assertion. This is some of the most important thing in Gestalt method. When you work in coaching, don't accept external demands that contradict your identity and self. Because if you become a people pleaser, which also is carried subconsciously from the past, I'm very dramatic right now. Please bear with me. This is a chance to create psychosomatic illnesses. Believe me, this is something that you can get psychosomatic in it. When we do research about, heart problems and cancer problems, direct relationship between stress at workplace and sustainability about heart problems and cancer. I will not go into this. It's a whole different lecture. Claudia Naranjo became a good friend of mine, the same Gestalt therapist. So, let's summarize. What? Claudia Naranjo. Claudia Naranjo is a South American Gestalt therapy, worked with Fritz Perls. So let's summarize. Gestalt therapy is a body psychotherapy. Gestalt therapy is in the here and now. Gestalt therapy is two-person system therapy. This is so important because it's not like Freud, who sat with no talking and just his client just, free associated. We work together. So when I start a session with a client, we have in Gestalt premises what we call voice in. Voice in is when you start saying, how are you feeling right now? How are you feeling right now? There is a mantra, which if I hear this mantra from you, I know that you've done Gestalt workshop. It says, sitting here in this chair right here, right now. This is a mantra. Sitting here in this chair right now, I feel anxious. I feel tired. I don't want to be in this session. I feel resistance. Everything is valid. And the therapist does the same. I will never forget one of my teachers His name is Irving Polster, very famous Gestalt therapist. And during the training, I was the last one to work. He gave supervision, and I wanted to be supervised. And then he said, okay, I did my voice in, and he did his voice in. Well, no, you're now going to have a reluctant therapist. Which was amazingly, because it's about authenticity. He didn't lie, he didn't impose, he didn't, made me think that, oh, he's ready for me. No, he was authentic. And when he was authentic, you see, authenticity, it's a two-person therapy, creates bond. This is real rapport. This is real rapport, not fake rapport. By being authentic. And that's why we stress and when we make that it is two people work together. And what happens between the two of us, and this is another mantra, what happens between the two of us in the session is a representation what happens our side. So when I am noticing something about our relationship in the room, and I make this awareness, then immediately is that only here between you and me? Or very quickly the client will say, well, I know that feeling. I have it with my mother-in-law. I have it with my sister. And then what happens inside the session is a representation of what happens outside the session. When I am noticing that during the session, this is a cure and this is a healing process. Because then we can do something about it during the session, which is taking away after the session is over. And that's the beauty of Gestalt therapy when we do coaching session. So, Gestalt therapy is a process-oriented therapy, not a content-oriented therapy. Gestalt therapy is experiential-oriented therapy. Awareness, responsibility, ownership, and choices are the key concepts. I'll repeat that. Awareness, responsibility, ownership, and choices are the key concept. I'll rush because I see the time. Okay? And this is my own version, so not Fritz Spiel's. This is my own version. When I'm interviewed in TV, this is what I give. The purpose of Gestalt therapy is to give new birth to the suppressed and denied parts of the self in order to rebuild balance and harmony. And you can, of course, become aware that when that is achieved, it transforms our life. The harmony can only exist if a human being can take ownership and full responsibility for his parts without judging and criticizing them as bad or wrong. Is it okay I'll take 5 more minutes? Mahesh, is it okay? You are my boss. You were my student, but now you're my boss. So I'm just showing you what we call in Gestalt the cycle of energy. If you will be willing to become my students, and you will go through the whole process of learning, you will learn how to make contact. You will know how to create figure ground formation, which I cannot go into this. You will go about polarities. You will go about recurrent and corrective experiment, and you will come into closure. This is a whole session. Mahesh, you recollect your experience as well, yeah, when we did this work. The most important thing, people, and this is why for me Gestalt coaching is so crucial, is about making contact. This is very, very crucial. Once we know how to make contact Gestalt way, the whole thing goes on in a cycle. So here it is how it is different from traditional coaching. You will hear my mantras. This because I created this term. I coined this term, coaching the Gestalt way. So, the cycle of energy, starting making contact, is body sensations. Become aware of body sensations. See what is happening when the client sits in the room or the group. Become aware of it. Not necessarily reflect it, but become aware of it. This is crucial. The body manifests the psyche. Everything in the psyche is in the body. Here and now, and emotions. Emotions do create change. That's why we want, because it operated from the limbic system, not from the cortex. And that's why it's so important. Now, I call that, you probably remember that, neck up. That's the coin I made. Neck up approach. Only head. Only cognition. So regular coaching profession is based on setting goals with client. Of course, right? Regular coaching profession is based on asking the client questions about history and vision. We ask many questions, which automatically brings up to neck up, head. And don't be surprised when you hear the coachee says, I agree with you totally, but how you implement it? I know what you're saying. It sounds so rational, but it's so difficult for me to implement this. I know. How you bridge the gap. This is something that happens all the time. Regular coaching enhances awareness and makes sure that the awareness is implemented in life through constant commitment. So the equation is change equals awareness plus commitment. Awareness is essential but not sufficient in regular coaching. In regular behavioral change. Is essential but not sufficient. So we need to make sure commitment is there. That's why coaches need to make sure that there's commitment. Neck down approach. This is Gestalt. Neck down coaching the Gestalt way. This is how we make contact. Sharing. Stay with the client. That means if the client, for example, you see nonverbal reaction, or the client speaks to you about an event that happened yesterday, which really was in a turmoil. We don't have, so what was there? No. This is a neck up. The moment you start questioning, ask questions, you bring people from the experience to the head. But if I stay with a client, I just stay. It's so important to learn how to stay with no talking. We have this tendency of come to excessive talking. What is this? What is this? Which is just an escape from our anxiety. But if we stay and we watch the turmoil, we watch the nonverbal questions, then attunement to body language, reflecting, mirroring. For example, the magic word. I'm noticing you are restless right now. That's all what we say. And that's enough, because what our client look is for validation. They look for understanding with no judgment and no question asked. And why? Just stay there. It takes a lot of patience, but it's so important. And then no interruptions, and listen to the last thing. That's why it's so different from regular coaching. No questions asked. Mahesh, you remember that I told you in supervision that the only question we are allowed to do is, in the beginning, how would you like to leave this session? With what image? Which is part of what NLP took. What is your image? But in the session itself, no, we stay. I'm about really to finish. So, changes does occur in the session as awareness, not cognitive but experiential. Non-healthy way of living is caused by unfinished business, then contaminate the present, like post-traumatic stress disorder. The only way to complete a business, like the 2 stories that I've told you, is through corrective experience and not through understanding. Because usually the client, so what? I understand. And I will give you another example. I have a woman, a client, that She complains all the time. Why I always choose the wrong man? All the time I say, the next time, this is going to be different. And I choose a man, and retrospectively I say, again, the same old shit. She is not aware of how subconsciously she's making a decision that could be like her father or 180-degree opposite of her father. This is subconsciously. So the only way to do is corrective experience. The corrective experience happens in the coaching session and doesn't need to wait for further implementation. Awareness stays in the head, experiential awareness stays in the body. As Dr. Frill Samar said, lose your mind to come to your senses. And now you can realize, I go back to the beginning of the session, what did I do with this wealthy person? You know what did I do with him? I asked him to choose in a group a person that will become his father, but a person that will appreciate the way he built the tower in the Lego. And then we did a whole drama. When this man came and said, wow, my son, what an amazing tower you built. And believe it or not, our right hemisphere doesn't distinguish between past and present. He knows it's a role play. The left hemisphere knows it's a role play. But the right hemisphere takes it as a corrective experience. And he reported a week after this session, that was the first night before the director meeting, he slept well, he didn't have any nightmare, and he came to the session with this self-assurance, yes, that he can build a tower. The 4-year-old kid stays with him when he was 42. But he behaved all his life 4.2. Right? And this person who was 5 years old with his parents, he chose a parent that would say, don't worry, son, I'll be back. That's fine. It happens. It will be okay. When in reality, he didn't know what happened. So, thank you so much for your attendance, people. If you go on my website, you will have some videotapes and YouTubes explaining about Gestalt therapy. And I really welcome you all. And thank you, Mahesh, for inviting me. Thank you all.